Everyone, panelists and guests. Thank you for joining us today. As you likely know, today is Veterans Day. If any of you are veterans, thank you for your courage and your service. This discussion is hosted by UNITAS. We're a nonprofit that started combating human trafficking in 2015 after our founders became aware of the horrors of human trafficking. UNITAS has offices in Eastern Europe and New York City, and our mission is to prevent human trafficking and provide opportunities for survivors to thrive. You can, of course, check out more on our website, unitas.ngo. We've got some amazing panelists today. I can't wait to introduce them. First, you guys can use the chat feature, by the way, so if you want to give like hand claps or like woot woots or whatever you want to in the chat feature, feel free. First, I'd like to welcome our special guests, Masha Goodich and Rachel Thomas. If you could both tell us a little bit about yourselves and why you agreed to be on the panel today, that would be great. Masha, let's start with you, please. Sure.
So I'm Masha Goodich. I was born in Russia, in Siberia, Ural. And I started modeling very early, like age 8. So my parents were okay with that. So I was at the beauty competitions, like Mini Miss Russia and just catwalks. I was working for different brands. And we decided that was too much, so we stopped because maybe at some point, for me it was fine. For me it was fun. And my mom felt like maybe it's too much, so I should focus more on, studying. But I went back to modeling when I was 15, which is still super early. So I started traveling. I moved by myself alone to Paris, didn't speak like very little English. So no money, like nothing. So, and I went with other girls. So we have some crazy story to tell what's happening to, unfortunately, to young and experienced girls underage. So now I live in between New York and Miami. So I'm 31 now, so I've been through a lot in modeling, so all these years. So yeah, I would like to share my stories, and I really love what I'm doing and helping UNITAS, because I believe that we can help a lot of young people, and like, especially now we want to have a conversation about modeling, about, social media that also affects a lot young people. So for me, it's very important because I can tell that there's a lot going on, in the world. So, and especially in social media. So yes, I'm here. I'm happy to be here today and sharing with you guys.
Masha, we appreciate you using your voice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rachel, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rachel Thomas. I am excited to be here to have this important talk. I am a survivor of sex trafficking, and I think the reason I was invited today is because at 19, I was approached by a man who said he was a modeling agent with some models my age on his side singing his praises, and 6 weeks later I was ushered into the pit of sex trafficking. And this happened when I was at a top 20 university, a junior in college, on the path to be a teacher, and was just sold a dream about modeling, a career I didn't even want. And I was not technically a minor at 19. It still, serves as a cautionary tale for how even those who are not minors can still, become victimized and prey to modeling scams and even real modeling agents who also, I say do both, and I'm just keeping the introduction brief because he was also a legitimate modeling agent for some legitimate modeling work, but he also had a clientele of people that wanted to, do more than modeling. And so after 7 years of healing, after I escaped that hell, I have spent the last 8 years in this anti-trafficking field, and I'm just excited to have this talk and help to spread awareness and prevention.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you'll be able to hear more from Rachel and Masha as the discussion progresses. Now I'd like to introduce to you my dear friends and colleagues, Tonya Turner and Andrea Powell. Tonya is our UNITAS Director of Education and Training. She's certified through Harvard's Derek Bach Center for Teaching and Learning. Tonya was also formerly the Director of Training at GEMS here in New York City. Andrea has been in the field almost as long as me, I think. What, 2004, 2005, something like that? Pretty far back.
That.
Okay.
Undisclosed and indeterminate number of years.
And before joining UNITAS as our Director of Youth and Survivor Engagement, Andrea had founded and directed Fair Girls in Washington, D.C. for many years. As for myself, my name is Lamont Hebert. I'm the Program Director for UNITAS. I care deeply about this work. I'm so glad you're here to help us. And now I'm going to turn it over to Tonya. Oh, before I do that, actually, just a little bit, I want to set the table for you guys a little bit. So you're going to be hearing a lot about what trafficking, how it relates to the modeling world. But I think we can learn a lot from that world because it's contract work. And more of us are moving into what's called a gig economy, which is based on contract work. And there can be dubious contracts, there can be, you know, fake job offers associated at a higher rate in the gig economy than just your typical 9-to-5 job. So even though you'll be hearing a lot about the modeling world, you may or may not be able to relate to that. It's something that we can learn from. It's a sector we can learn from some of the pitfalls and translate it into different sectors, and we can learn from it. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Tonya for the first question. Let's get started.
Thank you, Lamont. And again, I thank you, Rachel and Masha, for joining us today and sharing your experiences with everyone who is listening to this conversation today. And for all of the folks that are listening, ladies, could you share some insight into what you wish you would have known before entering this modeling industry? And Masha, would you please start?
Well, I'm glad that I have example of friends, model friends, what they went through. And I'm glad I didn't do certain mistakes. So, and I feel like somehow I was like protected from bad things. So, or maybe, I don't know, because I understand now that could have been so much worse and bad things could happen to me because there was a lot of danger, actually, especially in Paris when I started. And because, well, what I would, sorry, Tanya, can you help me a little bit?
Yes. So in that aspect, you know, we're talking about what you wish you would have known. And let me give you a little example. So when we were creating the curriculum, the prevention education curriculum, part of that was meeting with these wonderful young women who had actually been trafficked. Because our curriculum is based on the lived experiences. And part of this conversation today is we have parents online, we have people that are entering the modeling industry. And if there was just one thing that you could think of to share with online, what would it be? Would it be a—
Yeah, because I lost a little bit for a second.
Worry.
I wish my parents spoke to me more about it. They warned me, or I don't know, I never had a conversation about anything, so, or trying to protect me or say, hey, I mean, thank God I never had drugs in my life, so that's also affects, I mean, makes it worse, everything. So my parents, like, never been drinking, never had anything, any issues. So for me, it was a good example, but I don't know what about other girls. So, and I wish my agency also protected me a little bit more. Like they told, like nobody ever, so I had to learn from my own mistakes, or so I basically, I wish somebody guide me a little bit. So, which, I don't know, I'm just so lucky that like almost nothing never happened to me. So in this world, and because you're a teenager, you're 15, 16, you're still like super young, you don't understand things. So I had to learn by myself. So I wish, and me as a future parent, I don't have kids yet, but you know, I would probably talk to my kids every single day. I would, you know, make sure that they understand they're okay. And so I don't blame my parents, but I'm just saying that I feel like I feel like I never had like enough of the attention from that perspective, you know. So like not telling me what to do, but just tell me about world, you know, like what can happen. And I don't know. Also my agent, when I start working with, very first agent, because you can see it's obvious, like you send a young girl to a place, to a different country. The girl, like, still, like, when you have money, you feel more protected, obviously, you know. So, but I know my place. I used to live with other 6 to 12 girls in one apartment. So it was like, I cannot say it was terrible, but some girls are very like dirty, bad. I don't know. And so two things, like my parents is very important, like, to, you know, to have conversation with. And because back then when I started modeling was also no cell phones, like almost. There was something, but like I had old Nokia, so it was like no iPhone. We couldn't FaceTime. We couldn't. I was allowed to call my mom once a week or once in 2 weeks from the agency phone. So, and it was very limited. It was like 5 minutes, and that's it. So, you know, so we are not connected with parents at all. And then the old agency, they didn't care about your safeness. They cared about how you look only.
Right.
So doesn't matter. You can just do whatever you want as long as you're skinny. That's it. You're good. But the rest, nobody cared. So, and a lot of girls that I know got in trouble for things, you know. Thank God I was always like, you know, you don't want to do anything crazy. So yeah, two things: parents and the people that I trusted, my first agent, and also agency in where I started. Any agency should be like involved, especially young girls, like who just started. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
that's very important. It's education, you know, like you have to educate, especially teenagers.
And we appreciate that, especially in an environment for those of us that are in positions where we do have a family member, a parental guidance. It's very important that that parent is able to step in and act as the one that is looking at a contract or watching the hours and looking at that actual interaction. We thank you for that perspective, Masha. And Rachel, your perspective on your experience, please.
One thing I wish I had known at that time was that no one person with a promise can make you a star. And I think, you know, since modeling really does not have a set career path, it is one of those careers where you know, you don't go to college for it and get a degree and then apply for a job and then boom, you're a supermodel. There really is not an outlined career path as much. So I think people are more susceptible to hear a good promise and not really be able to decipher if it is valid or not, because there's not a set career path. And so I wish I had known at that time how to do due diligence, to check referrals, to check if someone has, you know, a website, to ask some of the questions to make sure that this person that is promising you everything, or even if they have an agency, you know, on a business card, and it seems like it's not just one person, I wish I had known to do better research before trusting someone's promises.
Thank you, Rachel. And I'll turn it over to Lamont.
Thank you, Masha and Rachel. I'm just going to interject here that, when you brought up the parents, one of the avenues that we do education for is parents. We finished part 1 of a parent's guide. We're going to continue to work on that so that parents understand all of the complex ways that youth can be trafficked and exploited. So all parents really should be trained so they can better care for and talk to their own children about this. And same thing with the agencies. UNITAS also does trainings for entities and companies. So those are really good points from both of you. And Rachel, your answer really kind of leads into my next question, which is, how do you spot the difference between a real and a deceptive or fake modeling job opportunity? How do you spot the difference between a real modeling job opportunity and a deceptive or fake one? Rachel, why don't we just kind of start with you again? You can maybe help us understand that. You mentioned some of it already, but expound if you can.
When we're talking about, an agency, there's more ways to check the validity of an agency rather than just a one single job opportunity. So with an agency, you can of course see the website, ask for referrals, ask for parents and other models that are working with some of the agents. And one thing when working, if they want to work with youth, I have gotten into the habit for some of my younger cousins or mentees that want to be models, I will ask their agent, I'll show them an ad and say, is this, in your opinion, sexualization of children or not? Is this the type of, photos and type of work that you think is acceptable for youth? And so really asking questions about also their moral compass or what they consider to be, beyond the lines of sexualization. And so, and noticing their demeanor. And if they have kind of an annoyance that they don't want to answer your questions or that you're so involved, that's a red flag. And, if an agent or an agency really has good intentions and the best interests, like Masha was saying, not just, oh, stay skinny and make us money. That's not the kind of agency that you would want any loved one working with anyway. So they should be very open to parent interaction and questions. And when we're talking about a modeling gig, something posted on a school campus or on social media, a modeling casting call, I think those are harder to detect. And so to be on the safe side, I always tell youth, do as much research as you can beforehand. And if you go, do not go alone, turn on your locations, tell people where you're going, take a friend, take somebody with you, for those open model calls type.
Oh yeah.
Excellent. Excellent point.
Thank God these days now you can Google everything. It's easy to research. So that's great, because before it was like, you just go for it, and if you get lucky or not.
Masha, have you seen, I know Rachel mentioned it earlier, where sometimes traffickers will also do some legitimate modeling agency work as well as being traffickers. Have you seen that as well internationally?
No.
Not so much. Okay.
Not so much, because I don't know. I was so busy. Like I'm first of all, I was like lucky. I actually got still in a good agency. Like I switched after that agency was my first agency in Paris. I switched for another one, so it was much better. So because they were very tough on me and didn't care, so it kind of felt weird. But not so much. So I was very busy. I was traveling, shooting. I was like living in an airport, basically an airplane. So I was like, because I know a lot of girls went out, when parties. So thank God. I was like, never had time for that.
Okay.
I don't know. That's what basically all the traffickers, mostly, I think, the hunting, it's easier.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Andrea, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about, Rachel, as you were talking about how to discern, what is a good opportunity, what is not a good opportunity. And I think having that one trusted adult that one person that can really step in for a young person, or even another young adult, even, you know, a young woman in her 20s who's approached, you know, as someone who's doing a lot of advocacy work in the space, I still get strange messages myself, even on Instagram. And I think about how, if that was the career I wanted to go down, everything looks so shiny and easy on social media. And so a lot of kids, I think, are under the impression like they don't even need a contract, that they are just going to like, oh, you know, they're going to send me these clothes and I'm going to take these pictures and then it'll be easy. And then they get sucked into this sort of indebtedness, and they get sucked into this addiction of like, if I do just a little bit more, then I'll, you know, get this big contract. But they're not understanding that the contract should have been there all along. So from your perspective, both you, Rachel, and you, Masha, what are some steps that trusted adult or that young person can take to obtain that contract, and then also to make sure it's legitimate and that actually complies with US international labor standards? Because that's another thing I'm hearing is this industry appears to think it's above what are typical standards of when a child should and shouldn't be working.
Rachel, you want to start, or?
Sorry, that was a lot.
You know, I will let Masha, you know, talk about the contract piece of it, and, you know, what the standard should be and how to look over a contract. The contract that the modeling agent that turned out to be a trafficker used with me was one page, and it was really just about the monetary agreement, what his cut was as commission. You know, and it was a way for him to have me fill out personal information, to get my home address, my parents' address, my social security number on that W-9. And so mine was completely fake, but my mom's an attorney. And the reason I didn't send it to my mom to look over first was because I knew that it was not a career she wanted me to have. And to Masha's point earlier, and I see that Todd has summarized it over here in the chat, you know, having that one trusted adult, even when the red flag was up, even when it was like, maybe I should run this by someone, not having that open relationship. My parents were amazing, they were great, but the sex talk, the drugs talk, that looming disappointment feeling was there. So if I felt like I was in trouble, it's like, oh, let me not stress my parents out. And so just as for parents, just reiterating to your children, no matter what, you can tell me anything, and, you know, taking some of those taboo topics off the taboo list, and just having that open relationship, because we are blessed with a gut feeling sometimes. And when we have those gut feelings and we have a trusted adult to go to those feelings with openly and safely, that will save us a world of trouble. I'll defer to you.
Yeah. So I wanted to say about social media, about how I get every single day, hey, let's collab, let's just join, like, you know, let's work together, let's do this. So I have strict contract with my agency, which is elite in New York and other cities, also mostly elite. So, and which doesn't allow me to work, like take the jobs on the side, for example, because a lot of models now, especially with quarantine, they're not working because it's impossible these days almost. So they're still shooting something, but so, and a lot of girls left without official work. So, and there's a lot of now, I can tell, like there's a lot of, I also see a lot of traffickers sending me like messages, hey, let's go to Mexico, I'll pay you like every week, I pay you this much, you don't have to do anything, maybe we'll do 1 or 2 photo shoots, like, you know, like a lot of crazy people. I get a lot of messages, so I'm like scared to open anything, like I don't even open, I can tell right away. So especially young girls, young models, or girls that Instagram models too, like who TikTok even, like, you know. So right now it's like it's hard to control it, and a lot of girls think that's, you know, I'm taking this job on the side, but it's scary because you don't know who exactly is there and what they So it's a big problem right now with social media, because you can't, nobody's there to protect you, because, so we, I don't know, ignore it. We have to explain girls that there's nothing, there's no easy job, there's no easy money. So
I think that's really important to mention, Masha. And also, I appreciate you highlighting the fact that there are so many young girls, not only in the modeling industry, but there's young girls and boys who
and boys, yeah,
want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to feel valued. There's this validation, like, oh, somebody is reaching out to me on social media, I must be really amazing, like this is special, and I want to take it on.
Maybe it's a chance for me, yes, to get, like, it's not about even modeling, it's about blogging, it's about like being influencer on the Instagram or like anything. It's not, I would say modeling, it's more like, it's not specific anymore. It's like modeling, it's everything these days.
It's
I
not,
feel like.
and people think maybe this is a niche issue, but what I'm hearing from so many young survivors and even parents who are calling and telling me things that are happening to their kids, it's really, it's kids across the spectrum, because right now so many kids are at home, they're isolated, they're online, and the only opportunity to feel kind of celebrated, if you will, is through online mechanisms, and traffickers, they know that. So parents and people with kids in their lives are kind of put in an impossible predicament of trying to protect their kid if they're aware of the issue, but also recognizing like completely cutting off social media would be even perhaps psychologically worse. So it's having that balance. But I appreciate what you're saying about the importance of understanding, like, things that are coming in through your direct message are probably not going to be very legitimate offers. I think that's really important. Real companies use, real channels to communicate.
Exactly. Yeah, I would always say that. So I never reply to people. I'm getting every day like 20 messages at least. Like, there's always like, but I don't believe in that. And if there's a real client, people that are very interested, they would reach out to my agency.
Right.
Like, that's the most important thing for me, to make sure that my agency is in control. Like, they'll check the people. So that's why there's no way that I'm just saying that for the professional models. So there's no way that, I mean, there is a point, maybe some girls are trying to avoid paying agency commission, so that's why they want to take a job on the side, or I don't know. These days everything is messed up with everything started being weird with Instagram, and now it continued with the also quarantine. So right. Social media is a big problem these days.
Tanya,
so I don't know how young girls, I know one girl, she always wanted to be a model, but she was little, not a model size or height. So, and then she was this nice girl, and then she just one day just changed so much, and she started wearing like everything, like you can see everything, and she's just showing her body on Instagram. So a lot of makeup. So, and then I see like she started taking the trips. So it was like, I can tell that she was all about Instagram before. She wanted to be like this Instagram star in TikTok right now. So it's like scary, and she was young, like she was like, I met her at the horseback riding school. So there's a lot of kids also.
Yeah, absolutely. Tanya, I know you had a question too.
Thank you, Andrea. Just to add on to the discussion around that parental figure, right? But many times, especially when you're talking about youth at that age, and Rachel, you began to speak about that a little more. It's important to understand that many youth will not go to a parent. They will not go to a guardian for many reasons. One being, my mother, my father do not want me to be a model or to even get into that vein. But we all are aware of the fact that the apex of what it's supposed to be as far as what defines success for many of these youth are how many bags do you have, how many shoes you have, and what on the exterior is representing that apex of success that our world is saying is. But when you're talking about going into this world of modeling, Masha, and is there something that we can say to youth that don't have that parental guidance, that don't have that hands environment in a household? Because many households don't have a parent. Many kids are in households where all they want to do is be a part of either helping to provide in a household and or knowing that they're getting those hits on Instagram, so on and so forth. But there's always something at some point in the gut of someone that says something isn't right. Is there anything that you could say to the youth that they can hone in on of that gut, that inner gut that says something isn't right, that you can share in your experience? Rachel?
Yeah, Tanya, that's a great point. And my heart breaks for the kids that don't have that trusted adult, that don't have the guardian or that, safe place to just run things by whenever they feel the need. And, it applies to this talk we're having. It applies just in life. Whenever I talk to youth, I do talk about that gut, and it takes practice to be able to honor your gut and to not push past it or to think that you're crazy or it's something, some of your trauma or your trigger is something that is your problem. And my advice always to young people is to get help. If you are in a situation, the freeze, the flight, flight could be good depending on where you fly to. But there's that tend and befriend, which is another, response that people have when they're in a bad situation or they feel like they're in danger. And the tend and befriend is what I did the first time that I saw my modeling agent hit another model. And in my eyes, I'm like, I just assumed that they were dating and this was like a domestic violence situation that I just witnessed. And oh my God, I feel bad for that poor girl. And she better break up with him. And I need to kind of back away from him too. He's a little bit crazy. And when I had this conversation in my head, my thing is like, well, let me just stay on his good side and backtrack out of this. And so I tried to end the contract and, say, I'm just going to go back to focusing on school. That first night after trying to back away from him and the day after I saw him hit the other model is when I saw the full evil side come out. And that was the first night that I was forced into sex trafficking. And from that night, I did not immediately call 911 because he had threatened to kill me and kill my parents. And so even with that, threat, which was very real, and I'd just seen his violent side, I still wish that on that first night, when I first knew I was in trouble, call 911, get help, do something to take action, because just trying to, freeze or stay on the person's good side or not cause an issue, that's never a solution. So.
Yeah, I agree with Rachel, and especially when you see the red flags and you think like, oh, it's okay, and then there's another red flag and you like, and you always think like, maybe it should be this way, like, and then you always have to think, like you cannot. Well, I have this story, like when I just started like serious modeling, but it was like 14, 15. I was about to go to Paris. So I was still back in Russia, and this photographer arrived from Paris. So, and they were shooting girls. So we're supposed to have like model competition for the contract in Paris. And so this guy arrived, photographer. So everybody was talking about like he's this big photographer, big guy. He was shooting every single day, like different models from our agency. So everybody was like, oh, it's such a like big deal to shoot with him. Everybody was like going crazy. But in fact, it was nobody when I found out. So, and he was taking advantage of most of girls at my agency though. So he was using them. He was promising them that I make you a star when you go to Paris. That's it. So he was just lying to them and using them for sex. And there was a lot of girls that with me that at that agency, they were older. So they always, before they had all this experience, maybe, I don't know. So, and they were going easy for that. So they believed him. And at some point, so when he thinks that he discovered me, when he took first picture of me, he was start acting crazy. He was like, oh, Masha, oh my God, she's such this girl, she's gonna be a star. She started promising my agency, my mom, like, you know, telling like, and pictures came out great. First photo shoot was in front of my mom. So, and the pictures, and when everybody saw the picture, everybody went crazy. They already sent it to Paris. Everybody's like, oh my God, so excited. And then that's when he started going crazy, like, and then he wanted to shoot me more and more and more. And then so each girl was getting one photo shoot or two, like max. So he requested me for 8 photo shoots. So he was really going after me. And I didn't know, because my agency told me like, oh, a lot of things like you have to close your eyes on, like you have to, models are like that, you have to, if they tell you to change your clothes on the street, you have to change it. You have no words, like you cannot say anything, you cannot, otherwise there's too many girls. It's a lot of pressure on young girls telling you that, listen, you cannot say anything, you can complain, you do what they tell you what to do, like you cannot, you have no like tongue, you know, like you're like a robot, you're making money, that's it. So when, for me it was a red flag. So, and I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I don't feel comfortable next to this guy, you know. So he's like, he was requesting from one photo shoot to another photo shoot. Everybody start gossiping, like, oh, what's going on there, why they like, why he's so obsessed with Masha. And then we used to live, it was like 60 kilometers from the big town. So when I was doing modeling, star modeling, so my mom couldn't make it every time with me to the city, so she was working. And my agency, they used to come to the photo shoots, and then they stopped coming. So they started leaving me alone with him. So, and I told, like, I don't feel comfortable. He was very touchy. He was like very, you know, so that was so many red flags, but I was so scared to say anything. But at some point I told my mom, I was like, Mom, this is weird. He started calling like every day. He started asking, can I take your daughter for lunch? And my mom was like, okay. And then she was like, oh, and then he started telling my parents like, oh, I'm gonna marry her. I was like confused. I was like, what's going on? Like, I don't even like, so the agency would keep pushing, closing eyes, like, yeah, it's fine, they just need more pictures, this is great that he likes her, he's gonna push her in Paris. And then at some point he's almost raped me at one of the photo shoots, and he got so scared. So thank God somebody walked in, because I was like, no, like, what are you doing? So because he thought that maybe other girls doing it so easy, and for him was okay. So he started feeling the power. And then it was like, he got so scared. And then when I went to Paris, so I won the competition. I went to Paris, and then he knew where I was living. So he started like chasing me on the street. So it was like crazy. So I didn't know what to do. And I, at some point I closed myself. I didn't even tell my parents. My parents still don't know about it. I just opened up just now, like, you know, it's just, this is scary what's happening. And these people feel the power, and like, this guy shouldn't be, I should have done, you know, things like I should have speak up more. So now I feel bad. I was 15, I didn't know. And my parents, so I wasn't sure, like, guys, like, do you think it's normal? Like when 15 and he's 32, like, and he's acting like this, like, so for me, so it's all about modeling, like, oh, you're just a model, just don't say anything, do your job, do what you gotta do. Like, it's so wrong, like it has to be changed. I mean, right now it's getting better, a lot better, but before when I started, I mean, I don't know if maybe somewhere it's still in Russia and Europe is still happening, but I don't see that happening in here, United States, but it's just terrible. What can happen to even girls at photo shoot, you know?
Yes, yes. And, you know, before we even continue to move forward, it's imperative that both of you understand how grateful we are that you're sharing your narrative with us. This is a narrative that we don't speak about enough, and sharing your personal experiences. Thank you, thank you. And you know, the other thing is that, you know, ladies, we've talked about a lot about families and that environment, but the biggest takeaway I'm hearing from the both of you, especially if a youth doesn't have that parental advocate around them, is anything that challenges your inner voice is a red flag, right? Anything that is challenging your ability to make a decision. And Masha, you kept saying, I don't feel comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very, very key point. Anything that is saying, I don't feel comfortable, you as a youth would have the ability to walk away. Because many times, if you've already come out of any type of trauma, especially when we're talking about what many of these traffickers have already done, then your response is going to be one that does freeze you up. And your response is not going to be one that allows you to have that voice. But at any point that you don't feel comfortable, we want everyone to be able to share with their youth, their children, and or a youth that they may be working with. You have the right to walk away. You have the right to say no. And that self-advocacy is very important. And then the last point is, you all shared, is finding someone who may just be a tad older than you, that will work with you, and that who could act as your partner when you're looking to get involved in this type of work.
Mm-hmm.
We good, ladies?
Yeah.
Okay. Lamont, thank you.
Yeah. And by the way, those of you making comments, we see you as well. Gina, thank you for making the link between photographers and agents working together. And you said that actually right before Masha told that story. So yeah, we have to be careful of photographers and, you know, really, again, those of you listening that aren't in the modeling sector, this should apply to many other sectors, that we need to trust that inner voice that we have, watch for the red flags, always feel like we have the right to get out of a situation. Even if a contract says we don't, we need to talk to someone about that contract, because traffickers and other people who exploit will use contracts as debt bondage to make people think that they have to keep doing something to pay them back. And that can be a form of trafficking. We're going to pass it over to, we've got about 14 minutes left. So we only got a couple questions left. We actually have a guest joining us who's a parent, Lauren Waters, who's going to tell an anecdotal story and then ask a question for the panel. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, everyone. So I'm coming at this from the parental side. I have two sons. My older one, when I think he was like about 4 or 5, I was with him and we were approached by an agent, a scout, I should say, for modeling. And of course, I think every parent wants to believe that their child is the most beautiful thing on the planet. And, you know, of course, is going to be a star and is beautiful and the whole world needs to see this. So I did take him to the agency, but I really felt like something was off. And, my little radar went off, and, they were asking the upfront costs for the portfolio. He'd have to miss some school to go on, go-sees and all this kind of stuff. And I just walked away. So I guess my question is, like, what are some things that parents should know when working with a modeling agency, or possibly working with a modeling agency, that they should be aware of? Like that little voice that went off in my head.
Might be really brief, and then I'll turn it over to Masha. But Lauren, I think that's a great question, and I think parents should know. And that you talking right then reminded me that in high school, I was approached by this guy with this fake accent, like, "Oh, you've got the look, you've got the look," and he like invited me to the John Robert Power School of Modeling. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. And I wanted my parent, I can, ask my parents to go, and they paid the upfront fees, and I walked with a book on my head for 4 Saturdays and did all that type of stuff. And at the end of it, I got a graduation pencil. And that is when my parents were like, "Rachel, you have a brain, use it, quit," because I've been taught, I've been 5'8" ever since 8th grade. And so I was approached for that when I was younger for modeling. But I think that parents should be aware that a lot of times the agencies will play on the same dreams and hopes that they do for the youth themselves. And I think that, especially when I'm talking to youth or talking with parents who want their children to be a model, really getting clear about the why and what your standards and boundaries are, and how far you're willing to go, how far you're not going to go, what's not worth it. And going into the meeting, going into any situation, knowing what your purpose and boundaries are, so that they don't get to define it for you. About, is it worth, how much school is it worth missing? Or, what type of ads would I let my 12-year-old do a Calvin Klein ad in a bra and underwear? Or is that not something that is, acceptable for me? And so really just having that conversation, being clear with your boundaries before they get to kind of impose or suggest what is industry standard.
Mm-hmm.
I would add, so since I was going to a lot of castings, and I can see sometimes like Macy's, Target, sometimes we can see parents are coming with their own kids. I mean, with some, like 3 years old, 5, even like 9. So they go to each casting. I mean, they have to. So they really, I can tell the parents that putting their kids into modeling here in the United States, they're very serious about it. And it's great that I can see that they go to each casting, each photo shoot, everything. They follow them everywhere. They don't leave them alone at all. So that's how it should be done. So yes, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of, missing school days, and but it can be also great money, and it can be a great kids Gap, kids campaign, Macy's. So it's great, if your kids are doing it.
I just knew something.
But and also another important thing, that you have to sign up with a very good agency that have good not reviews, but like you have to make sure that they're good, they're big. I wouldn't go to a small agency. Like I would be like, I don't know, it's great, but at the same time it's a lot of work for you also, Lauren.
Thank you.
But
I have another question. When I started to get involved, I was really shocked and taken aback when I heard about the connection between online gaming and trafficking. And my kids now, especially with what's going on in the pandemic, they are playing, Fortnite all the time, or more than I would like. How can we as parents keep our children safe from exploitation online when they're playing their video games?
Andrea, why don't you start with that one, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that question. I too have little people in my life who play those games, and as a parent and as someone who has lots of friends with kids in these younger ages, 6, 7, 8, 9, I understand that it's great to have that social connection. They can connect with their friends, but here's the reality. Anyone can chat in and talk to your child at any time. Your child can block them or delete them, but they don't have to accept them as friends. So it's really not on your kid. It's if your kid's connecting to people online like a stranger, it's not necessarily they sought it out. They're being sought out themselves. And so it's really important to talk to kids about some boundaries and some ground rules. Hey, you know, if you feel someone is being, you know, weird or you don't know them, you don't have to be nice. Just block them. You have the authority here, and come to me and let's decide together who you message with, who you play with, who's in your groups, who's involved with you in the online world. And if you don't know them in the real world, they don't need to be existing in your online world. That said, though, I think it's important to understand that these companies and these places that create these games really should be collaborating with anti-trafficking organizations to better safeguard their games. But in the absence of them currently doing that, us as parents really need to understand how easy it is for that world to turn really dark. And I have talked to other parents where that has most recently happened. So I encourage parents to daily check in and say, you know, who are you playing with? How's it going? I know parents who've actually had to play these ridiculous games themselves in order to be connected to their kids. So luckily that hasn't become my predicament yet. But I think it's really important to understand you just got to be all eyes, all ears, all hands on deck, particularly right now where kids are alone. And to Tanya's point that there are so many kids who don't have that parental support. If there are ways for those of us who are listening in to connect to youth groups or to volunteer, to become a big brother and sister, to support organizations, not just UNITAS, but of course UNITAS, who are doing this kind of work, those are other ways to give back and to give to communities where there's a lot less access to that parental support. So Lauren, I appreciate your question. I wish I had some positive full stop answer, but it's really, you're gonna have to get nosy.
We're trying to actually get to some of the executives at these gaming companies to do some trainings, and because there needs to be some accountability and some training.
So positive, we'll find them.
Yeah. We only have a few minutes left. Andrea, why don't you ask your final question, and then I just want to talk to the attendees for a little bit as well.
Absolutely. So, you know, I think for Masha, for you and Rachel, if there's one thing each of you could say to those who are listening that they could walk away with, that they should keep in their mind more than anything else, is there the one thing or a couple of things that you would like to add? Odd question. I see it in your eyes, Rachel.
I mean, to turn anything valuable that you've learned today into action. I think awareness and talks are great because that's what sparks action. But if it stays at awareness and talks, then it's not fruitful. And so if it's, you know, going to your child tonight and talking about something that beforehand you've never talked about with them, if it is, you know, volunteering or donating with UNITAS or another organization, if it's seeking out, you know, prevention curricula, whatever it is, turn something you've learned today into action. And I put in the chat one of the answers to one of the questions in there, and just for parent resources and about internet safety, I have scoured the internet and there are a lot of great resources out there. And so it includes some from UNITAS and some other organizations, and there's so many different topics, so many different angles. Not one organization is covering everything. And so just, you know, figuring out where the most danger could be for the kids in your life, whether it's the gaming or aspiring to be a model or you know, their influences at school, whatever it is, and just putting that extra layer, shield of protection around your own children and teams that you care about, and taking action to be a part of the solution.
I agree. Yes, the most important thing that there's a parent job to do their job with kids at home, talking to them, be more open, or it's so important. Like even like I understand now, you know, because before for me wasn't like important, but now I understand. So yes, like trustful relationship with your parents, most important. And also Tanya, when we went to school in Miami and when we educated kids, it was such a beautiful thing. And it's so important. They also like, I think they heard from this like different side of the story, or like a little different than they hear at home. So it was beautiful, and it's so important. Education is the most important thing, and especially for kids. And so that's so beautiful what we are doing, and helping kids, and going to schools, and we should keep going only and just never stop. And it's so like important. I mean, that's the best you can do, because they learn a lot from it, and then it will save their life, or it will help them in life. So it's just super important.
Masha, that is a great transition, actually, as just as we wrap up. Just so you guys know out there, we have partnerships with various school districts, including New York City and Washington, D.C., but UNITAS doesn't have the funds to do all of the trainings and all of the kid education that we need to. And of course, COVID has really stripped a lot of school districts funding. And so there's not a lot of funding to do training of staff and teachers and to educate youth. And so our goal is to reach hundreds of thousands of youth a year with prevention education work. And we need your help to do that. And so you can donate on our website. We'll be sending you a link that you can donate to after as well. And also another way that we could use your help is, look, if you have connections to companies that work with youth or organizations that work with youth and they need some training, we're available to do that. And also if you're connected to school boards and superintendents, hook us up, let us know, because a lot more youth need to be educated. Our goal is to reach children before traffickers do, and we need your help to do it. To everyone on the panel, thank you so much. Can we, in the comments or however you want to make noise, can we like give it up for Masha and Rachel and the rest of the crew? Thank you so much. And Lauren, thank you for joining us from that perspective.
Thank you so much.
I wish we had a lot more time, but we're sticking with the hour. If you guys want to ask some more comments, you can. If you want to ask more questions, you can in the comment section. And of course, you're always able to connect with us via email to contact@unitas.com. Plus, you'll be hearing from us anyways, and you can just reply with the questions and comments. Thank you to everyone who attended.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.